Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Growth Club Summit. This is our lucky last session on day one. We saved the best for last. We always do. And there is no, I genuinely, I seriously mean that. And this is an amazing session that I'm super excited for. I'll be introducing both Kylie and Rachel in just a moment, but like always, I'm going to give you a little bit of the housekeeping so you know what's going on. If this is somehow your first time joining us today, welcome. But if it's the sixth or seventh time, then you know the drill. We're here at the Growth Club, presented by the firm, hosted by, powered by Intuit QuickBooks. And we're talking all things workflow, compliance, soft skills, and in particularly in this session, we're talking about what happens when things go wrong and you're trying to balance a personal crisis of sorts, and how do you lead and manage and do all the things that you're supposed to do. And look, I'm not promising we'll have all the answers, but we're going to have a really good conversation about things that you could do and just how to acknowledge that things happen and we're going to have to push through regardless. Or not. Like, I think that's, I'm not, no spoilers. We'll pick it up as we go. Bit of housekeeping. So all the sessions on the Summit have been recorded and transcribed thanks to the wonderful team at Vinyl. What that means is you can access all the transcriptions after the session. You can unlock even more value out of all the sessions that we recorded. There is a CPD point available for this session today, powered by the team at AccrediWise. We'll have information on how to do that after the Summit. And then thirdly, my favorite, who wants to win some cash, you just need to tag us on social media. Jump on LinkedIn, tag the firm, use the hashtag Growth Club, and you go in the draw to win money. It's very simple. You could do it right now. Take a photo of all this and go, yep, I'm going to do that. My last quick tech check is to make sure that you can hear and see everything okay. So just jump in the chat that's on your screen and just say, hey Trent, can see you, can hear you. That's always a good sign and good help. I'll be in the chat with you today as well. And huge thanks to our partners. We can't run these events without the love and support of our partners in the accounting tech community. Huge thanks to the team at Intuit for their support. But if you haven't already, I recommend you go and check out a lot of the brands, apps and suppliers that are backing the Growth Club and in course wanting to back and support you as well. Now, over to the host and stars of this particular session. What do you do when things go wrong? Running a business through chaos, crisis, and curveballs. I shared this on LinkedIn, I think the other day, and yeah, I had a lot of people going, this is a great session. This is a great idea for a session. We're joined by Rachel Fisch and Kylie Parker. Rachel, Kylie, it's so good to have you here. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to kick off and get started by just maybe some introductions. So now that we're officially beginning our session, Rachel, maybe I'll start with you. Do you want to give us just a high level, tell us a bit about you, your background, and your career?
Sure. My name is Rachel Fisch. I am located near Toronto in Canada. What am I? I guess we'll talk about that later on today, but my experience more recently has been both in the accounting and technology space. So in accounting, I've had my own practice. I've also worked at Deloitte. And then for technology, I've worked with Sage Software and also Dext.
Amazing, very cool. You both techie and Kylie's going to come on your side. Actually, I'll let you. Same question. Tell us a bit about yourself and your career to date.
So my name's Kylie Parker, and I'm under the flight path in Sydney, down in St Peters, hence the headphones today. But so I've got an accounting practice, and like Rachel, I've also sort of had a bit of a background that is quite similar. I worked at Deloitte before starting an accounting practice. I did have some things go wrong, so then during that period I went and worked at Xero as a senior account manager for a couple of years. Sort of just had my practice in the background and got to a point where it was getting busier and went back online, but also able to take the learnings of whilst I was at Xero into my own business. So it's very heavily automated, and whilst I was went through a divorce and the business split, wrote a book called Planning Plan B, which it's a long way of how to plan for 10 of life's unexpected stressful events, but it really is because shit happens, and we all experienced it with COVID, and so I think now people are a little bit more mindful as well of people used to think I don't want to jinx myself for planning for worst case scenarios, but I think now it's all a little bit more a reality. We do need to plan.
Yeah, I hate seeing the big dirty C word, but only as a reminder that, literally the dumbest things that you think couldn't happen that only happen in movies and films actually can actually happen, and we've all lived and went through that pain. So yeah, you wrote a book. Everyone listening, you can check out Kylie's book. It was Planning Plan B. And I'm going to just preface, like, we're sharing a lot of like honest, sensitive stuff today. Like, we've obviously had a bit of a pre-game a week or so back. You guys both connected and shared a few of your things. So for everyone listening, yeah, there's going to be some raw, sensitive stuff here. And I guess we want you to just feel encouraged that you're not alone. There's probably stuff going on for you that you don't talk about. And yeah, as Kylie said, things happen. Rachel, I wonder if you wanted to share some of your Plan B experiences, I guess, just as part of your opening to set the scene a little bit.
Sure. I think so. Most recently, and what was so interesting about doing a session like this is, most recently being not being at Dext anymore, as well as not having an accounting firm to fall back on. So what I actually joined Dext, part of the purpose of that was to earn some income outside of the firm, because I felt I was the firm's biggest expense and we could actually grow faster and serve more clients if I wasn't such a cash drag on the firm. And so I thought, if I get my income from elsewhere. So I worked for several months with who I considered a business partner to continue to build up the business, or at least kind of keep it running, but with that extra cash savings. And unfortunately, during my time at Dext, the firm essentially fell apart. The partner abandoned the business and the firm completely fell apart. And so here I am trying to, be my absolute best for the team at Dext and at work, and making sure we're continuing to deliver to the North American market, as well as, basically working until 2, 3, sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to get a handle on what client work has been done, not done, when were they last communicated to, how is this going. I do, though, need to be a little cautious. And, Trent, thank you so much for mentioning the sensitivities. There is still legal action currently happening around all of this. And so I just need to be a bit sensitive to that and maybe not be quite as transparent as I would like to be, but I definitely wanted to, when we were talking about doing something for the Growth Club Summit, for me it was really important that there be some content, whether it was I was involved in it or not, that talked about kind of the stuff that nobody sees. And I think that social media can just be such a highlight reel that, like, they call it doom scrolling for a reason, right? It's like you're going through crap, you're going through stuff, and yet you can't get off the stinking phone, just kind of taking a look at the highlight reel, and you start to create this vision for yourself that everyone else is doing phenomenally and you're the only one that's failing or that things are not working well. And so it was really important to me that we talk about the stuff that didn't go as planned. And I love that as soon as I mentioned that, you're like, Kylie is the exact right person to engage in this conversation. So thank you, Trent, for even being open to having this conversation to get it out there.
Thank you. I mean, my first real question here is wanting to ask, why did you want to share your Plan Bs? It's very hard to get on a stage like this and, share the things that have been traumatizing and dramatic and things that you never want to really, want to bury them and never think about it ever again. So, Kylie, maybe I'll just ask your first point. Like, you obviously wrote a book on this as well, but what made you want to come and share your more of your story today?
Very much, it can often be pride. You don't want to, have other people thinking that you've been through experiences and maybe you should have done something differently, or is there a failing in, how you've treated something. But to me, it is, as Rachel said, everyone puts their, the filter on and the best kind of version of themselves that's quite often not even the real version on social media. And so for me, I've always been sort of more of an honest, open book. And, when I was going through what I was experiencing 10 years ago, I was just up reading so much information around divorce and commercial law. We were sort of in a unit trust structure, so there was a lot of issues just even being able to take action. when you're sort of a four-partner firm effectively, and you're the one person that's being asked to leave for reasons that you feel are quite unfair at the time. But and so it was to help other people. It was like, well, I'm learning so much, and through that experience, well, what information can I put together that helps? And I think it was very much designed as an idea of putting together a practical and legal sort of documentation, so that in the event that something does happen, you are physically prepared for all those changes, and you can, because you're in such an emotional state, that it's easier to make those, make it through that period. So it does tend to get used more when people are going through something, which wasn't the initial idea of it. So if someone's getting divorced, they'll read it, but the idea is really it's a plan for Plan B. And for my, I think everyone likes to try and help different people in many altruistic ways, and this is it for me. I've learned so much, and I'd like to share my learnings so that it doesn't hurt other people as much as it sort of hurt me at the time.
We're all very appreciative. We're all sitting here saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're all here saying your things out loud." So, firstly, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for both of you sharing on what is really sensitive topic. Some of the questions for the discussion today is around, like what happened that forced you into your planning and Plan B. And I mean, you've both kind of shared on that a little bit already. I wonder if we maybe start with some of the personal impact before we jump into the professional. Rachel, I don't know if you want to kick us off there, I guess, but just going through that process of things that impacted you, what you were feeling at those times, and then how are you balancing the juggle of all the pain and frustration that you're experiencing?
Yeah, no, thanks. So I know that, we've already talked about COVID. I genuinely think that it was like a global trauma and they talk about trauma bond, but I think what it did do is it made us be a lot more open and transparent about how are you feeling or how are you doing. And there were some, for me, it was really challenging. I feel like I just became a hermit even after things were opened, or I just didn't want, people. I'm a bit of an introvert naturally anyway, but I just felt like it dialed all the way up. So there was also a lot of kind of self-analyzing, and which is probably why, I got to do the doom scrolling and why I was so aware of that. And I think that, if I've always been somebody who on socials and stuff like that, never really faked it. I always talked about authenticity, and the trick about being authentic is that you have to be authentic all the time. That's kind of the point. And so you can't, be authentic when things are great and then not be authentic when things aren't great. And it's not about, being, Debbie Downer. I don't know if you know Debbie Downer. But
I've
it's
met
about
Debbie once or twice before.
just being, just being real. And actually in several of the posts that I've posted, more recently, I actually had somebody reach out and they said that it's just raw. It's just, this is what life looks like today, or it's a really nicely crafted, post. And then the next day it's like, sorry guys, not having a great day. And just being open even with that. And so I think that, that time, during shutdown, and of course Kylie and I even talked about kind of, the difference between Australia and Canada and what each of us, kind of dealt with through that time. But it certainly did give everybody a bit of a time to kind of be introspective and figure out what was really important to them. So it was actually kind of it was in the middle of COVID that I bought an accounting firm, or on the tail end of it, I guess, that I ended up buying this accounting firm. And then, shortly thereafter brought on somebody. We worked incredibly well for a while, genuinely enjoying working together, felt like we really kind of challenged each other, made each other better. And so I think the thing, besides the business component was, this feeling of, why didn't she feel like she could trust me, to let me know what was going on. There's, of course, a lot of what did I do? How did I cause this? And, trying to be objective when it's something so personal is really challenging. But there's stuff that you can fix and there's stuff that you can't fix. And at some point, you just have to kind of get into action mode and do that and kind of fall apart later. And I had many times where that was the case. I took my daughter out to Vancouver on a bit of an extended business trip. And one day I spent basically bawling, crying the whole day. So I was not a great travel partner for my daughter, but it just was all kind of hitting me, as another threatened lawsuit or another thing is happening, or, trying to deal with something else. And it was just getting to be too much. So besides all of the things about, trying to save this business, it's like, am I really that much of a failure, to have not been able to make this work or to have not seen it ahead of time?
Yeah, wow, because that can really, amongst you trying to get into action mode, there's this all the doubt and the beliefs and all the things that you build up in your identity, right? Like, as in, hold on, I'm this person that does well. That's who I portray myself to be. And look, I use social media a lot more than most people should, I would say.
Well, that's how
Yeah, that's how we met. That's how we all know what's going on in each other's lives, at least the good parts. Yeah, so that I totally hear your point there. That's that's a lot. Kylie, I kind of want to jump to, what was the hardest part, like during your period of jumping into grief, and you talk about marriage breakdown and everything else, but what was the hardest part you faced by running the business whilst you're experiencing all this at the same time?
Look, to be honest, I was really thankful for prior networks that I'd made. So an old boss that I had in my second job, I rang him when after I had the meeting with the business partners, and I was crying, and he just said, look, just come here. I've got an office, spare office. You can just use that until you sort of work out what you're wanting to do. And through that period as well, so I really did feel, as sort of Rachel alluded to, just, well, what have I done? Why have these people that I've trusted so much, sort of my husband started, he was having an affair, and the business split was because one of the business partners had told me he was had a mistress, and I started suspecting it was one of our business senior managers. And so it was, people that I've trusted, and I didn't see it coming, either of them, and it was 6 weeks apart. And so it was actually my professional networks that really did sort of get me through. It was people that, they're not your closest friends, but they know you well enough, and they sort of supported you. And then so with my clients, it was a case of, so what I actually had to make the decision was, there was one time where I was thinking, how am I going to take my clients and start a business, given that I am getting divorced, I'm going to have to sell the home, I've got 2 young boys that were 7 and 10 at the time. And then I just sort of had this, I was driving back from seeing my auntie in Newcastle, and then I was like, why am I trying to do this right now? I actually need to work through everything before I can think about my clients. And so I did actually leave clients behind, at which that they were pretty annoyed about, but I had my manager going on maternity leave 2 weeks later, so there was no capacity. I was just, the lawyer at the time asked them, when they were all annoyed that I'd left, I said, well, what did you expect to happen, and so that's just it. There's a point where you go, well, I love that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you kind of go right back down the bottom. I was up the top, I was, partner, and had a great place in Bondi, and you're just back to, I've got to look after my health, and like just security, safety, and so I did tell all my clients, and they were really good. And then just when I was ready and back on my feet, and started Lotus Accountants, so that's very much deliberate. No mud, no lotus. Out of something murky comes something beautiful. And the clients, I think they respected, well, at least they were in an environment that they could still look after. There was still a team to get that work done. So I think sometimes you've actually just got to really, you can't do it all sometimes, and just have the conversations with people, and if the clients are generally nice people, they understand. Things do happen to everybody, and then at the end of it, just once I was ready and I got started again, I have clients that have been with me for over 20 years, and I just think even now I've had a few things with my business, just with changes of staff, and there's a team of 6, and 3 of us, not including myself, but have had close family deaths just in the last few weeks. And so it's all, this time of year, it's all very chaotic again, and it's just having those conversations with your client, say, look, this is happening. And most people are pretty understanding. It's, and if they're not, I mean, they're not the type of clients you want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. That does. I'm trying not to laugh because it's a very serious topic, and this was also my way of dealing with like stuff that's super sensitive. I think is just to make fun of things, particularly myself. I wanted to ask, I guess, some of the practical elements are there, and even if it's there's no practical way to manage that stuff. But I think when you're communicating with clients, and this will go for both of you, because you both had scenarios where clients needed to be informed. Did you put some sort of plan together? Are you sending out an email? Are you trying to call everyone one by one to say, hey, my life's falling apart, I just need you to know? Like, was there a particular approach you took to let clients know what was going on?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kylie.
Yeah. Recently, so there was phone calls to some of the clients, and then there was emails to others. So it just depended on the clients. And at the moment I have, again, I was getting to a point of this is too much, and so this is the perfect time. I liken it to, you're growing a tree. So you start a business and it's a little baby tree, and then you're just putting so much into it to getting that growth going, and then you decide on whether you just want a massive, big, overgrown oak tree or whether you like a little hedge. It's nice and neat, and to keep that hedge nice and neat, you've got to prune along the way. And I mean, that's just, I think we can sometimes get things a bit unruly, and then something else happens, and that's when we sometimes go, okay, well, now I'm forced to do it. Where I think that sort of regular, for us, 30th of June is our end of financial year, so taking stock of our clients and applying that Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule, and more often than not is the bottom 20% that take up a lot of our time, and so to answer your question, it was just a case of what suited the clients. And I generally did also, I included options as to where they might go. So some clients would then sort of say, can we have a call? Is it something I've done? And then you just explain, look, this is where I was at, and they go, okay, I understand. And like I said, I haven't gone, okay, I've got a parcel of fees, I want to try and sell them. Everything's been about, where is the person that can help them that I think is best suited. So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Rachel, on your side with your business partner and that falling away and everything going on, was there a particular process for communicating with those clients? Were you on the phone, were you emailing? Was it a bit of, half and half?
It was mostly emailing, just because I was having to do it basically outside of regular work hours. And so my number one concern was making sure that they had help to get done the things that we had committed to get done and now couldn't. It was difficult to know kind of where the status was in several of those things, especially tax related things. And I'm not a tax professional, so it's not like I can just kind of jump in and just work it to death or like work it to solution, right? I couldn't help them. And so I needed to, first of all, find folks who had capacity. And so that was really my first calls, and my first reach outs was who's available to help these people, because I can't. And then it was, as Kylie mentioned, emailing folks saying, look, here's the situation, here are your options, we'll kind of figure out, billing and all of that stuff, but I want to make sure that you're taken care of, which in some cases actually burned me with my errors and omissions insurance, because what I thought was really interesting is that you get insurance for some of these situations when things go wrong. If I had completely walked away, abandoned the business, let everybody sue me who wanted to sue me, tried to not make financial amends to anybody, insurance would have covered me. Because I tried to take care of them, make sure that they didn't feel the loss, get them the help that they needed, insurance doesn't cover that. And so this is why it's continuing to I mean, this was all over a year ago, and it's continuing to go on, because some of the things that I thought were the absolute best thing to do in terms of integrity and, me making sure that I wasn't, that I was doing everything that I could possibly do, actually ended up, you could say it ended up hurting me financially. It definitely hurt me financially. But I wonder, Kylie, even when you were mentioning, some clients didn't go with you, well, you have to know, right, that they're probably like cursing you in the background, right? I can't believe that, Kylie, she just up and left, and what about my blah, 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 right? The challenge is, in some cases, right,
Yeah.
people are, I certainly know that was the case with me. And again, it didn't matter how well I was trying to take care of folks, how well I was trying to communicate. There were people that no matter what I said or how I said it or who I was trying to refer them to are going to think that, that I caused it, or that I was just out to screw them, or, this was part of that kind of self-reflection, was I can't worry about other people's perception. And I think this goes back, Kylie, to what you were saying. It comes all the way back to, what do I need to survive right now? And in this case, it was just making sure that people got the help that they needed. And I couldn't even start to second guess what that meant for my professional reputation, what this all meant. I was just trying to get people taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough. You're trying to do the right thing and you're getting penalised. So my key takeaway there, you said, was have insurance, but don't try to help your clients if something goes wrong. That was the key takeaway I picked out of that.
No. I'm sorry if that was your takeaway. But again, it was just something that it wouldn't have even occurred to me to just walk away, let everything fall to pieces, and figure it out later. Like that, it wouldn't have even occurred to me that was going to be better for me.
Yeah, well, Kylie, I know you got a checklist on this in planning Plan B. Any key things in the checklist you recommend people put in place to help in planning for these things?
Well, I think a lot of us at the moment are still getting up to date with all the changes with the tax agent code of conduct as well, and so some of their thanks PwC for all this extra work, that we still have to be having sort of risk management in place, and that can be sort of obviously succession planning, but what happens if something, especially when you're a sole practice, what happens if something happens to me? And one of the things that I have all my clients own their Xero files, because one of the worst things for a client is if all of a sudden they don't have access to their financial data. And so I make that, it is across the board. So the only files that I have are partner plans. And like even today I received again in that sort of pruning environment, one of the clients is leaving to a sort of a high mid-tier firm. And they're having the client subscription just to a staff member. And it's like, how can you as a business not have at least a generic kind of email that it's going to? And so that's the big thing for me is for business owners, who owns your data? Is it just some sort of random person in an accounting practice? If you're the accounting owner, what happens to you because Xero is, those files are the subscribers. That, it's very hard to get them to change, especially like in my role there. It was really escalated at one stage. There was a partner that was going through a divorce, and he just checked out, and he just left all his clients, and so then when they're monthly payroll types of clients, and you need to be in there to get that data and locked out, and it wasn't until really it got escalated almost to sort of the press level that there was some step in and helping transfer those subscriptions. So for me, there's lots of things that we have to be doing now just as tax agents, and so making sure that documentation is in place. But it's not good enough just to have a Word document. It has to be actually who is in place. And I'm seeing a lot in some of the small business Facebook community groups of people just like having a little buddy instead of going, okay, well, if something happens to me, here's the information, and as digital passwords, who gets access to things. when you can't. And it's like I've said, we had recently my old Deloitte partner, who's a consultant, his wife was killed tragically just a few weeks ago, and so again there's a bit of a refresher of, okay, well, he helps one of those main high net worth individual clients a lot, so it's okay, we need to have all backup plans. There's gold somewhere, where is it, it's having that information in place, so that when something does happen, you can look after yourself a bit more emotionally through it.
Yeah, I remember when you were saying that, and it's super sad hearing that story. What I just heard you say, and again, I'm trying not to make funny jokes on the back of all the fun takeaways I've heard, but that almost sounds like a business will in a lot of ways, right? Like we have a will and estate planning for personal, and this is almost like creating a will and a next steps for business. Would that be a good way to think about it?
Yep, definitely. I mean, that's risk management plan.
With no legal connotations, obviously.
A business estate plan. Actually, I've had a couple of clients just getting their estate plans done, and that's the thing. If you're a sole director of a company, just making sure, again, if someone's going to step in and try and sell what you've got there, how do they do that? So there are, as business owners, a lot that we need to ensure is in place, because otherwise, someone that's dealing with an unexpected loss plus then having to work through that, it's not fair on the people that you love and that are left behind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes sense. Rachel, question for you is, in reflecting of all the things that have gone on, any operational gaps you wish you'd seen earlier? Like, is there things that you're looking back on, like, that was the red flag that I missed? These were the things that you didn't pick up at the time, but now you're looking at it going, oh, it was so obvious that this was going to be a thing?
So yes and no. I thought, we were staying in good communication, like in regular communication, asking, oh, billings are a little low this month, or what's going on with this revenue number, or like asking different questions, but there was always a sound explanation for it. And I wish that I maybe trusted a little less, actually, and just started digging into the financials, like at a much more granular level than just, looking at our QBO dashboards. In terms, we had a mix of regular monthly bookkeeping business and tax business, as well as annual tax business. And so we were kind of in that flux of getting a lot of tax clients for tax year. And then it was, had they given a deposit, where are they in the, or even just knowing that a change had been made to how we kept track of those things, and not insisting that I get that explained to me ahead of time. Again, it was, they kind of run the tax department and that's what they take care of, and I'm just going to trust them to do that, instead of, so let's go over this. Where are we with this? Or, what's completed, what's not completed, just on a pretty regular basis. That's definitely something that I could have been more adamant about, just knowing more. I was trying to do the trusting partner thing,
Do you think you'd have been less likely to go into that relationship if you had to go in and micromanage at that level, though? I feel like when you're entering a partnership at that level where, we're all smart people and we all want the best for each other and you're expecting that. But if I go in that thinking, I want to come in this, but I need to make am I going to go in thinking I need to, not that you were micromanaging or suggesting that, but that's my view, another way of explaining it. But if you have to get that deep in the weeds on top of everything you were already doing as well, does that make that even hard to consider stepping into that in the first place?
So yes, which was the constant debate that I was having with myself, right? It's like we spent time together to hand over the stuff that I was managing previously. I should be able to trust them. And then, with leaving with no notice, and very quickly, a few days or maybe a week later, realizing that they weren't ever coming back. It was trying to, yes, that could have helped it could have helped the situation after the fact if I just better understood. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with just wanting to understand. Now, if I'm, wait a minute, how come this hasn't moved over to the next, column in the Kanban, or how come, this hasn't been done yet, or that email isn't responded to yet, then yes, absolutely, that wasn't the intention at all. It was to save the firm money. It was to continue to grow it. It was to make sure that we had a really smooth, we did a lot of pre-work before tax season started to make sure it could be as smooth as possible. And it just wasn't. So yes, I've debated with myself that lots of times. Quite frankly, in wanting to be that trusting partner, I don't know that there is anything that I could have done or known when I was being told things are fine, I don't need help, I've got it taken care of, we're okay. And so the only way that you can do anything about it is to not believe that that's true. And I believe that that was true. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. We've got two different sort of themes to go through before we start to wrap our chat today. But this next part of our conversation is around managing yourself, so surviving emotionally and cognitively. Kylie, I'll start with you. So when you are in grief or stress, how does your thinking change, or how is that, right now we're all in a hopefully nice, stable place today, we're all feeling okay, but, when you're in that trauma period, what's going on? How does that change the way you think about all your decisions and things?
Well, so there's the fight or flight response that I'm sure we've all sort of heard of, and so that your sympathetic nervous system is sort of going into overdrive, and you're kind of having that emotional, you're in that heightened state, and so I think for me through a lot of that it was good old Excel spreadsheet. It was a brain dump of everything that I had going on, and it was just what was my priorities at the time, and you get to that point where I can only do so much in a day, and obviously trying to outsource things to other people, but it was really acknowledging at one stage there I got like a lot of stress hives down sort of the sides of my neck, and sort of could be a lymph node response, but I started dating a bra boy. This is for Rachel, they're kind of like a gang out in Maroubra of surfers that have had a pretty bad reputation. And I kind of think he helped me through some of it, because I was like, I'm going to get him to go bash people up for me. But it was... later on I said to my friends, why did you let me do that? What were you... you clearly... Everyone works their way through things. For some it's counsellors and probably a lot more appropriate ways of doing it. But for me it was just I really did. I felt smashed. The people that I was in business with and my husband doing what they did sort of so close together. And so I think there's yoga, there's meditation, for some people swimming, riding, and I like I said, there's that you go straight back into looking after your health, because when I was researching for planning Plan B, one of the psychological reports that I came across was called the Holmes and Ray stress scale. And there was studies done in the 60s around if you have some of these major adverse life events happen to you, you're more likely to have health issues down the track. And so we might put it in the chat, Trent, just for later. But if you go through that, and it was like, at the top is death of a spouse, and then there's divorce, marital separation, so they kind of can be different because obviously different time periods and de factos. And the fourth one was jail term. So I didn't talk about jail because I figured you could actually plan for that. It wasn't unexpected. You're making a deliberate choice there somewhere along the way.
You'd be surprised. I actually, I know some people that, I know a person that ended up in jail I wasn't surprised they went to jail at some point knowing that person, but I think they were surprised that they were going to jail because they never had been caught for all the other things they'd ever done. If you know what I mean.
So that's what, for me even now, I kind of do have a little bit of a flare up again just with the changes, and it is too when you're hyper compliant as well and you want to do the right thing by people. I think Rachel's kind of comment is, I went in to help and I tried my best, and where some people might walk away, where we're not that type of person. So there is then the, making sure my weekend was just spent with a couple of girlfriends, and there was a bathhouse, and just being able to talk about things, and also because when you're in it, you're in the weeds as well, and so everything's at you. Where sometimes kind of stepping away like that and coming up to the top, it actually gives you a chance to breathe and to see it's okay. I'm not in that bad a place. This is temporary. Like one of them had a saying about it's just the season, and you'll get through it. And it's just I think. And my brother's getting divorced at the moment too, and I kind of described there's a bottom. Sometimes you think you're at the bottom and you're not, and you get going, but at some point it does go up.
Sorry, this is not a funny topic. I don't know why I keep going. Wow. We had a note here on how you can help your own clients when they're going through their own Plan B moments. Now that you've both, and Rachel might be too soon because I know you're still, some of this stuff's somewhat fresh, I guess, but do you find that now you are obviously more empathetic towards people that are going through all this stuff because you're like, hey, I've been where you've been and it will get better at some point. But do you also... Does this now wrap up, I guess, I hate to be the guy that's trying to commercialize everything, but like, is there a service offering in that? Like, is there an idea here that we can actually help you plan for these terrible moments as part of what we do as advisors to our clients?
Yeah, look, I think there definitely is. People still don't like to plan for it. So one of the people that helped me with the book was a really lovely old guy called Eddie Lees. And when I say old, he must be in his 90s now. And he had a business called Now Sorted. So he had an app that he's only just wrapped up, like in the last month. And it was to, been putting documentation into place. And so people still don't really like to prioritize it. Everybody's busy. And so, it's definitely having the conversations. Like, I find it easier because I've written the book. My clients know that that's something that I've had experience in. And so I would say all of my clients have estate plans, and then where you put that documentation. So I've recently come across Air Wealth, and so it's an app that also then has like sort of Xero and Class and other apps like link in. So from an accounting perspective, people can sort of see their overall wealth. So it's not just this is what happens when something bad happens to me. It's also like a goal setting, and we're sort of setting it up at home. And I came home and my husband's there because you can putting all his watches in, so you can sort of take a photo, and it's not just your your business assets, and then you can put in there a bit of the story about how did you get the watch and who might you want to have the watch, and so it makes it a little bit interesting. So that's something I am going to roll out for sort of 2 of my clients sort of in the next few months, and then again, I think we've all seen various kind of incarnations of sort of people trying to get that information in, but unless someone wants to do it themselves, you can only push sort of so much, I think, as advisors.
Yeah. Absolutely makes sense. I am conscious of time, and I kind of want to get to this theme on building community and support. You both talked about a little bit on that community and what it's done for you, but Rachel, do you want to start just by what role your professional community played in helping you through some of these things?
Sure. I think that out of that, everybody being a little bit more transparent about their mental health, or even being an introvert, as if that was something that people would admit in shame, but it was just like, this is how being around people affects me. You kind of start to find your people, people who are like you, and when you can find folks that are also transparent, or that are also introverted or ambiverted or whatever, then it makes it a lot easier to be open about how you're feeling or how things are going. And a couple of things have really been helpful. When I know that there are people that I can reach out to, or they ask how I'm doing, and I know that I can be brutally honest with them. I'm like, it is not a good day. Like, do you want to have a call? I'm like, I can't stop crying right now. Like, just give me some time. Like, let's plan a call for later, but I can't. I'm better typing than talking right now because I'd be a blubbering mess. It sounds like I cry a lot. I have definitely more over this last year than normal, but yeah, honestly, it was just getting the stress out. And I think that Kylie, when you were talking about, being stressed or being in grief, they can sometimes have the same physical effect on our body. And one of the first thing that kind of goes very quickly is your memory. So it is really important as soon as you start getting to those times is just start writing things down. What do you need to be keeping track of? You're waiting, for somebody, you're waiting for contact back for somebody, or you're waiting, or you need to ask somebody a question. I definitely think, that one of the things that I could do, which again was debating and not debating, was the way that I communicated or communicating more. And I felt like there was a couple of months where things were changing so fast that by the time I communicated and by the time they received the response, oh, it changed again. And then I look like I'm a huge flake. And that's not the case. It's just the situation is changing quickly. So then I started getting guarded with my communication. And I think I was like overly guarded. But then it was also about just talking to folks who had a partner. What kind of things a business partner, what kind of things do you have to kind of mitigate, when things go this way? I'm also really grateful to folks who, so Carl Reeder is one of them. We had talked about working together for actually several years. We met at one of the first QuickBooks Connects back in San Jose, and just trying to look for an opportunity to work together. And I had kind of assumed that, since my firm is essentially failing, that that's never going to be the case. And he was patient, and we had some good conversations, and then he's like, when you're ready, let me know and we'll get things back on track. And just to know that that he was willing to be patient with me, other people would be willing to be patient with me, to do the right thing or continue to move forward in whatever form that took. So I think that community is absolutely critical. I remember, when we were talking and kind of planning for this session, I told the story of a friend of mine named Josh, who unfortunately had a cancer diagnosis. We were on the FreshBooks Partner Advisory Council together. And within what felt like a very short amount of time, he had been quietly struggling for a while, of course. And to see how folks kind of came around him, made sure that his clients were taken care of, when he was going through treatment. And unfortunately, he passed away. But just to know that, even if you're running your own firm, you can always jump in and, can I help you with some clients, or can I, not to poach them, but to keep it going, so that once you're healthy, that everything is still in place. And actually, unfortunately, right before our session today, I got an email that another friend of mine, an industry peer, has been diagnosed with cancer and is now looking at treatment options and things like that as well. So I know that, Kylie, you mentioned we don't want to talk about it, we don't want to do anything about it. It's real. Like, this is affecting us, our family members, our peers. It would be really pretty ignorant to think that things like this can't happen to us. And so the best thing that we can do is, when you're outside of those hugely stressful, grief-filled moments, is to start, thinking about, what would I do in this situation? Who do I want my business to go to? How do I want my things taken care of, my clients, my business, whatever that may be.
Thanks for sharing all that. That's I actually knew Josh as well from my Ignition days, and he was lovely. He was awesome. I actually just found that article again, just remembering that as well. I know this has been a super heavy session, and we did say at the start we were going to talk about a lot of like raw, open, honest stuff. As we sort of close the session, I'd be keen to get, if you can both just give me one key thing. So if there was one small action that anyone's going to take this week to start prepping their own plan B, is there anything in particular you'd recommend? Kylie, I'll let you go first if you like.
I think given that it is sort of a business context, is really your passwords. So just sort of what access would people have in the event that something happens, and just so that you're not locking clients out of their businesses. And I think that would be just checking your online, access and what you're doing. Would be one takeaway.
Yeah, good start. Rachel?
Yeah, I've talked a bit interchangeably the word stress and grief. And I think that it's really important to know that our brains actually don't understand the difference between a physical loss and a non-physical loss. And so that loss of expectation, or whether it's you thought you would have, the rest of your life with this person in case of divorce, or you thought you would, be able to see this person at the next conference, when they passed away before you had a chance to see them. Those things are actually handled, your brain treats them the same. It doesn't know the difference between them. So even if you're like overly stressed, your business is crumbling, again, your body is still going through all of the same process as if literally somebody had died. And so, minimizing things by saying, well, at least nobody died, actually isn't helpful, because your body and your brain are still going through all of those same stress and grief responses. So actually, as I was wrapping up my time at Dext, I had 3 very close deaths to me, and actually missed my last few days of work because I was on bereavement leave and working out funeral plans with my mother. So these things happen. Take the time now, when you're not grief-stricken, when you're not, at the depths of loss, to take that time and plan ahead, so that you don't have to try to do it. And remember, social media, including LinkedIn, is just a highlight reel.
It's not real. I can absolutely verify that is the case, because I spend more time on it, as I said, than most people do. As we close, I know there's a few different resources. I mind, Kylie, if you just want to run through where people can find those resources, and then Rachel, similarly, if any resources you think people should check out.
Yep, so on the website, Planning Plan B, I might put a link into there. There's a couple of checklists for business, and also just links to other kind of providers. Some of the books now are probably 7 years old, so I do actually need to go and do a bit of a refresh. But the checklist is still there, and as they with AI, I mean, even if you just literally put into ChatGPT a prompt with the website, and there's pick some of the information from there and put a list together, would definitely be a good starting point.
Yeah, we'll share that link in the chat just now, so that's easy. And Rachel, your side?
Yeah, I think just finding your community. There are a ton of fantastic accounting and professional communities where you can find your people. Those folks who you can be transparent with, who you can trust, who you can, honestly, when they ask you about your day, you can be brutally honest with them. So find your people, find a community, and be willing to be authentic all the time, not just in the good times.
Yeah.
So if you want to include some of those great communities, I know you know a few.
Yeah, happy to. We'll put that in this as well, just below. Also, we've done it. This is us officially wrapping the session and wrapping day 1. What an awesome day! What a great way to finish. Thank you so much for both of your time. We really appreciate it. And looking forward to getting into day 2 tomorrow, where we get to do this all over again. But just quick thank you from me to both of you for being so real and open and honest. And if anybody wants to follow you both, you're both on LinkedIn and actively posting and sharing in there. So thank you on behalf of everyone. If we were in person, we'd be clapping and there'd be flowers and roses and it'd all get thrown. And unfortunately, you've just got to settle for me pretending like that's what's happening.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks so much for putting it together.
No worries. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you all very, very soon. Cheers.